All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Well, happy Saturday afternoon. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. 540-0580. Jury trial starting tomorrow in Cumberland County, I'm told. Or, I'm sorry, Monday. Tomorrow's Sunday, right, Shane? Yeah, we can't start it on Sunday. Probably, maybe, kind of, have a jury trial. That seems how they always work out. They give you a list on Friday. You call the client up and say, be over there on Monday morning. And we'll believe it when we see it. If we actually pick a jury before noon, I'll be surprised if it didn't happen on Tuesday or Wednesday. But it's always great to be a witness in court case, too, because then you never know when they're actually going to need you as well. You're always on call. And then you get to counties like York, where they're a little even crazier, and they say you need to be on like a 1-hour call or a 2-hour call. And you say, but Judge, my client lives in Kalamazoo, and the witness is coming in from, well, it doesn't matter. Have them on a 1-hour call for 3 weeks. So anyhow, if anybody's got a horror story about being a witness in court, I'd love to hear about them today. 540-0580. And, of course, if you have any legal questions you need answered, we'll do them here on the air. So whatever you guys want to talk about, if you've got a personal injury case, you want to do an adoption, your neighbor built a fence in the wrong spot, you're right away. Actually, the one we'll get right now is he plowed the snow into my driveway and blocked my driveway. So if anybody has any of those snow issues, we sometimes see those come up quite a bit. 540-0580. What else did I want to talk to you guys about? Well, the Supreme Court obviously has touched on some First Amendment issues, and they actually declined to do anything in a couple lower court cases involving religion. One where the lower court had prevented prayer from being used at a county meeting, but another one where they did allow a religious statement to stand, and nobody knows exactly what the theory was, except that they seem to be saying that it's still going to be a case-by-case question. They didn't want to announce any new fundamental rules in the freedom of religion First Amendment analysis. 540-0580, 540-0580 if you want to talk about that, or if you want to talk about any other legal question you have, call in. Rick, you're on the air.
Yes, Carl. My name's Rick, and I had a question about a sheriff serving a writ of execution.
Yes.
I got a judgment from the DJ. I filed the paperwork with the Prothonotary's office, and I went across the way and got served the writ of execution with the sheriff. Now, the sheriff, I guess, tried for a month, or probably about 3 weeks, and could never find the person. So what they did was they sent the money back to me and said that they could not find the offended. The reason they couldn't find him was because he was out of state, but he's back in the state. Now, how do I go back to the sheriff and say I'd like you to continue serving this writ?
Well, if the sheriff still has the writ, I think you can probably ask him to go ahead and reserve it, but you might need to refresh it or retransmit it from the Prothonotary's office. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
Okay.
But it wouldn't be that difficult. Usually my process would be to call the sheriff and say, hey, I found the guy. Would you guys like to go execute it? And if they say, well, we can't or we need this or that, then I would follow their instruction. But I would think if nothing else, you would just file a new writ of execution at the Prothonotary and send it up.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, my friend, good luck with that.
Okay, thank you, Carl.
And hopefully they got something, right? Hopefully they came back with some property you can levy.
Well, they have a house, they have 2 vehicles and an RV, so
yeah,
they can go after those. So, okay.
All right, my friend.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. 540-0580. If you have a legal question, get it answered here on the air. Also, I wanted to talk about, I had filled in for Durgan on Tuesday, was it, Shane? Was that Tuesday? Wednesday. Filled in for Durgan the other day. And good old Bob, his callers were calling in, and I had a guy call in who was wanted to ask me some sort of question. And I say that only because he started to talk to me about a situation where he had learned after a 10-year marriage that his child was not his biological child. And I think he started out by saying he was struggling with some of the issues. And I sort of jumped all over him about whether or not, because I let him finish up his question, but I basically told him he needed to support the child because it was his child and that legally it was his child. But I never let him follow up with his questions, and I feel bad about that. I went back and listened to it, and somebody pointed out to me who knows a lot more about things than I do that I wasn't actually listening to the fella. And if I had paid attention to them, I would realize that they wanted to ask me a question, and I was just guessing what I thought the question would be. And I went back and listened to it, and I agree with that analysis. Somebody else on Facebook also pointed that out too. So obviously, if that guy is out there, I'd love to answer his question for him, whatever it was, because I jumped on him a little bit about it. But, the basic premise on that one is paternity. A child born to a marriage is presumptively the parties'. My issue was I thought that at some point he was trying to ask about getting out of paying support or how custody would work, etc. I guess I was inferring some nefarious motivation, and I didn't think that was fair in the final perspective. So anyhow, if anybody's aware of that caller or knows who they are, if they want to call in, I'll make sure I give them their better answer and pay a little bit more close attention to it. On the other hand, I'll stand by my theory that if you've raised a child, and I don't know if this was his question or not, but if you've raised a child as your own for many years and you determine later on that it's not really your biological child, I don't think that changes your relationship with the child in any way. 540-0580. Brian, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Roger. I'm a transplanted Pennsylvanian. I lived the majority of my life in Florida. Now, I'd received from the state that I was to show up for a jury pool.
Okay.
And I did that. I got picked on the jury, and the guy was found innocent, and that was fine. But 2 weeks later, I got a notice in the mail from the federal government wanting me to show up for jury duty in Tallahassee. I lived in Miami, and they wanted me to go to Tallahassee. It'd be sequestered, I would imagine. Now, I don't know if you can make this true or false. When I was in Florida, you only had to serve jury duty once every 2 years.
Right.
Is that correct for Pennsylvania also?
Pennsylvania, I believe you can get a 3-year exemption.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, so good luck.
Nice weekend.
All right, my friend. 540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions on WHP 580. Betty, you're on the air. Betty.
Yes, my question is regarding living wills and power of attorneys.
Okay.
I moved from Illinois to Pennsylvania, and I'm only going to be living here a couple years, but I wonder if the ones I have from Illinois are still valid.
Technically, they are still valid, and I don't see a need to change them. On the other hand, we sometimes find that people will respond better to documents that they recognize. Okay. And what I mean by that is if they're familiar with the document, they've seen the document before, they're more quick to jump on it. And so for a POA and a living will, they're both very simple documents. And in fact, I can tell you when we do a free will for somebody, we basically end up charging them an additional $90 for the living will POA package to go with it. So you're looking at basically $100 worth of documents if you had a lawyer do them, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on who does them. You could also download them off the internet. Of course, then the risk is you're not really getting what you think you are, et cetera, or at least with full explanation. On the living will side, Pennsylvania's statutes actually lay out a safe harbor for a living will language. And so doctors and medical providers here in Pennsylvania quite often want to see that safe harbor language because they feel very comfortable with it.
Okay. So I can probably just do some type of an internet search and find Pennsylvania-approved living will forms?
Yeah. And I would recommend, at least on the living will side, that on the POA side, it should be okay.
Okay.
If, on the other hand, you become incompetent and somebody needs to use your POA, well, first of all, if you pass, it becomes a moot issue because the POA doesn't work past death. So if you did become incapacitated and the POA wasn't working for some reason, we could still get a guardianship for you. Although good housekeeping would be to get the POA in advance. But again, I don't see a problem with one from Illinois.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
540-0580. Carl Rominger here on this snowy Saturday answering your legal questions. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back. Carl Rummager here answering your legal questions. 540-0580. 540-0580. Well, what else do we want to talk about here? Let's see. They finally got our Scrooge and Marley sign down, Shane. Did you see that?
I did see that. I was happy, but at the same time I was sad though, because that was a really, really cool idea and a really cool sign we had.
Well, I think it'll be back next year. That's the rumor on the street. So hopefully it came down in one piece, because I would hate to have to buy another one. But we'll see what happens. I also thought about maybe we should just come up with different themes, like Easter Bunny and Company or something coming up here.
You're going to get real creative with this, aren't you?
Nah. Actually, what's funny is when we changed our sign to Scrooge and Marley, apparently 1/3 of the world has never heard of Ebenezer Scrooge, and therefore they were routinely asking if a bank had moved in or a new company had moved in, and then people who were trying to find the office couldn't find our name on it. So there seemed to be a lot of confusion. So while it was fun to do, it also drove our secretaries nuts, which is a good thing, because I think they deserve every once in a while to be driven batty. 540-0580. If you have a legal question, call in. We'll answer it here on the air. Just want to remind you guys, obviously when you call in, we try to not make it too personal. I don't want to know the name of the company you want to sue, etc. Mike, you have a question on wetlands.
Yeah, so what happened is here in Hartsdale, I've got some wetlands behind me, and I got a real nasty note. It's been flooding there for years. Got a real nasty note from the town that basically said, in 30 days or else you better clear all the trees back there and trimmings, and because the neighbors are complaining that it's flooding. Well, I have an issue. A, it's illegal for me to go screwing around with the wetlands. And I went to the county website and found out that if you believe the tax map, this stream or wetlands is not even really in my property. It's obviously been flooding for years. I tried to talk to the supervisor, and he basically told me to go pound sand. So, it's not my responsibility to tamper with the wetlands because somebody downstream is flooding.
Right.
And I have never even walked in that part of you've got rabbits and, it's wetlands. It's damp all the time. It floods all the time. And I'm looking at what defense can I do, because basically, hey, man, you don't do this, we'll go to the judge, and then we're going to screw you.
Right. Well, I guess we'd have to take a look at the situation. Usually, if I was hired, let me say, if you had hired me, for instance, the usual protocol I would follow is to talk with the township and find out exactly what the issue seems to be, and then see if we can mediate it and say, hey, wait a minute, we don't even know what you're talking.
They won't even tell me, here they expect me to correct this flooding situation. And I said to him very politely, I said, okay, well, where is it flooding? Can you tell me who's complained? And his exact words he said to me, the police chief told me, I don't have to tell you anybody who complains to us, and we're not going to. So how are we going to find out anything here?
Right. Well, and the answer is maybe we don't need to know who's complaining. Maybe we just need to know about what's happening. But if they show us where it's happening, maybe that'll help us figure out who's complaining. My thought on the matter is you probably want to get a lawyer involved. The other reason is we're unemotional, and it removes that whole confrontational thing from it. In other words, you want answers, but you really care about the answers. The lawyer's just hired to find out what they are. So we can sit back and be a little more methodical about it.
Well, what it is, and I know you don't want to hear this, they are just belligerent.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. And that may...
I talked to the town supervisor. I said it's a swamp back there. It's been that way for probably 100 years, maybe 1,000 years, and it's not even my property. And he basically said, that's not my problem.
Yeah, so, I guess my thoughts on the matter are we'd have to take a look at what the alleged violation is, see if they could enforce it, see if there's any compromise to be made. And if it's not your land, then what are you supposed to do?
Right, and I told him that, and he still told me to pound sand.
Well, then I think the judge is going to help you win that one. Once you show him it's not your land, the judge is going to go, you brought the wrong guy to me.
Well, do they value the tax maps they have at Cumberland County? Those ones that you can go in there and it gives you like a digital...
Yeah. I mean, they're kind of the official map for the county, aren't they? Absent a survey, that would be the best evidence.
Yeah, and also that, believe it or not, I asked my neighbor what this pipe was, and I guess the original survey pipe on one end of the property is still there. Okay, yeah, I looked on the digital map, and it even shows that the stream, which is a blue color, is on the opposite side of the tax property line.
Right.
So, okay, I guess I'm stuck having to go. Now, here's a question. Let's say I win. God knows how many tens of thousands of dollars this is going to cost. Can I then sue them if I win for the legal fees?
Most likely not.
Jesus. So this is a license to steal.
Well, it's a license to harass, if nothing else. But if you prevail, and you may be able to recover some legal fees under some theory. But I never tell people to bank on that because as a general rule, if you get prosecuted for a crime you didn't commit, for instance, the government really usually doesn't owe you any duty or any money. If you're a politician and the special counsel investigates you, the government usually doesn't pick up the tab unless there's a statute in place that allows that specially, for instance. So point is you're kind of on your own versus the government. The only good news is, at least in our system, you've got a judge who's going to be neutral, who can arbitrate the differences, and hopefully you'll prevail if you're innocent.
Okay, just out of curiosity questions, because it is when I go shopping for a lawyer, what topic am I looking for? I mean, I'm not looking for a criminal lawyer.
No, you're looking for a land use, zoning, planning.
Planning, okay.
Steve Schneider in my office does that.
You have someone in the office?
Yeah. Ask for Steve.
Okay, sir.
All right, Mike.
I appreciate your time.
No problem. 540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. If you got to call in, just call in that 540-0580. Get on the air here, and we'll answer it on the air. If you think you might have a legal question but you're not sure, run it by me. I can always tell you. I think I said this on the show before. When you're driving down the road, you're not sure whether it's dark enough to turn on your headlights. Just turn on your headlights. What difference does it make? Well, if you think you might have a legal question and you go see a lawyer, they might get billed for it. But if you only think you might have a legal question, you call in here to the show. We won't get an address. We won't know where to send the bill. 540-0580. Ted, you're on the air. Hello, Ted.
Hi, Carl. My question is, we have power of attorney, my wife for me and me for my wife, and my daughter for both of us. And my wife says that we have to get a certified copy at the courthouse so that we can give it to, before we can send a copy of the POA to our daughter. Do we need a certified copy, or can we just fax a copy of the one we have, the original?
Well, let me back up for a second. So you have a power of attorney.
Yeah.
And why do you want to send it to your daughter?
Yeah, she's out of state, yeah.
Right, and you're going to send it to her so she can use it.
So she can have it, and just in case she needs it. Because we're old folks, and she might have to use it. So, and wherever she is, my wife says if she has a certified copy, well, then it becomes something she can use right away. Otherwise, if something happens to the original POAs that we have stored in the house, if a fire burns down or something,
right,
she needs a certified copy. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I'm wondering about this. The short answer is, yeah, you can have a notary or other person, go ahead and do a certified copy. But some people still want to see originals. My advice would be simply to do an extra set of POAs and send them to her. So a lot of times, like if you had hired me to do the POA when you walked out, I just said, Ted, here's three originals. Give one to give one to the person that you want to have it, and keep an extra one or two at home, and that way everybody's got one. Sometimes I would say to you, don't send the extra one. Don't give one to the person you want to use it unless they absolutely need it, because maybe you don't want to give them any power at this point. But my point is I would usually just make an original for them. That way there's no questions at all. You don't have anybody wondering, why is it a certified copy? Is it actually a certified copy? And in another state, you never know how they're going to look at it.
Well, she said that by going to the county courthouse and getting a certified copy there, that becomes more legal than one if you just go to a notary and have it.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, I guess that might make a difference to somebody, but it almost seems to me like you should just execute a new original and have the notary stamp it as a new original and then send it out to them.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, Ted.
Bye.
540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. When we get back, we're going to talk to Nancy about driving a friend's car while uninsured. Oh, 540-0580. We're going to talk to Nancy here in a minute. And let's see. Drew Deo, how are you?
Not too bad, Carl.
540-0580 if you want to shoot in and talk with me and Drew. Drew and I. Drew and you. I don't know. Anyhow. And Drew, we're going to talk to Nancy here in a second. But what's going on, brother?
Well, let's see. This week I did a lot of civil work. Trying to settle a case up in Franklin County with an individual that was attacked at a party, and the issue's coming down to whether or not one of the individuals who was a guest at the party, who attacked this gentleman, whether the homeowner's insurance will cover his actions. In other words, did the homeowner do all that they could? So it's an interesting issue, but did a lot of work on that this week, and then had a full-blown custody hearing yesterday, which went most of the day, but that was successful.
Always exciting. Let's pop Nancy. Nancy, you want to talk to us about what's going on?
Yes, Attorney Rominger. My grandson was driving a friend's car recently and was pulled over at a gas station. I guess they're called a T-stop. And the moral of the story is the insurance had ran out on 11/15 of last year, and his friend thought it was good until January of this year.
Okay.
In the meantime, the insurance company notified PennDOT, and so he failed to produce a valid insurance and operate a vehicle with a suspended registration due to insurance canceling. Now, he received a $386 fine. They were going to take the car in and impound it, and he asked them if they would please not do so. So he gave him 12 hours to get the car. In the meantime, they took the license plate off. He received a letter from the district judge and said, "This is to inform you that if you plead guilty or are found guilty of this charge, your driver's license will be suspended for 3 months." So he didn't know that he was driving a car. I guess the moral of the story is if you're going to borrow a friend's car, you have to make sure that that they have insurance and everything's...
Yeah, I mean, you need to make sure that the friend has insurance. More importantly, if you're going to borrow a friend's car, you shouldn't assume that the friend has insurance. You should probably have your own auto insurance. And
yeah. Well, see, he was going to buy this car from his friend on the 15th when the insurance ran out.
According to his friend. That's when the insurance ran out, right?
Yes,
and,
yes.
It may be a defense. And he
did buy the car. He immediately went because there was no plates. I told him, I think your best bet is to go and get the transfer done, purchase the car, get tags on there so you can move it, or else you're going to have to pay for an impoundment fee.
Right.
So
that makes sense. But he should definitely fight that. I mean, I think if the officer and or the judge ultimately conclude that he was completely unaware of the lack of insurance and was misled by the friend, that would probably be a defense.
Mm-hmm.
Technically a strict liability crime, but nonetheless, I think most judges would acquit you if you could show you had no idea that there wasn't insurance.
All right, my question is, would he be better off having the services of an attorney at this point?
I would think so because of the potential loss of license. What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, I don't know right off the top of my head, but even if there's no, even if you don't have the greatest defense, there might be something that you could negotiate that wouldn't require that license suspension.
The $386 fine seems to be pretty steep for something like this.
Well,
when it's not your car.
They've made the no insurance. Yeah, it is steep, but they made the no insurance statute have some teeth. Because what they want you to remember is that if you don't want to buy the insurance in the first instance, it's going to be as expensive in the second instance. Because it was only $25, some people might go, well, you know what? rather than spend $500 with the insurance company, I'll just pay the $25 fine if I get caught.
Right.
Well, what he did, he actually went the next day and transferred the title over, into his name, and purchased insurance at the at the agency where he went, a local place where you can. Was Brimmer's in York, and got his and took care of everything right there. And then that way, I drove him out, and he put the plate on, and he was free to go because now the car was back in insurance again. But I have the new title to the car here, and but I don't know if they recognize that all this.
Yeah, and that actually will help because that's one of the questions a lot of times the police officer will have when we're trying to work one of these cases out is, what steps have you taken to remedy the situation?
Right.
Exactly.
So, Nancy, if you want, call our office, and Drew would probably be happy to talk with you since he knows about the case now. And
absolutely. Anytime there's a license suspension that's automatic like that, we try to work something out. That's definitely something I would.
Drew, the other thing I want to remind people is a lot of people think they can go and the judge is going to somehow cut the license suspension and go, oh well, you know what, I won't. It's just a fact. If you're found guilty of that charge,
right,
PennDOT will suspend the license, and so there's no flexibility. That's not a sentence. That's just a collateral consequence of the conviction. And so even if the judge goes, well, I'll make the fine minimal and I'll do this or that, we find a lot of people don't realize that they will lose their license nonetheless. So, Nancy, have that fella come in and talk with Drew, okay?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
you.
Have a nice day.
You too. 540-0580. Ann, you're on the air. Hello,
Did you
Ann.
say?
Ann.
Oh, hi. That's me.
It's you. You winner, chicken dinner.
Thank you. We're trying to sell our home. It's an older home with a common wall and no firewall. The people that moved in rent. We do own our home. There's a lot of cigarette smoking going on over there, and it's coming through to our side. But we also have suspicions of illegal drug activity and marijuana smells. We've called the police, but they haven't really detected anything definitive. There was one officer who came when we called who said he did smell something but couldn't be certain, and he'd put up a report but wouldn't get a warrant unless they were really certain.
Right.
Now, in signing the disclosure forms and everything, what are we responsible for?
In the disclosure form?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's an interesting question. I'd have to sit down and map that out pretty carefully. But it seems to me if you have a suspicion of illegal drug activity, but you haven't actually seen it.
No.
I'd have to. I might want to do a little research on that because obviously, as a seller, you want to do as little disclosure as possible.
Right.
But as a seller, you also want to meet your duties to make disclosures that would leave you open to liability.
Right.
So
there's nothing definitive.
Right, and it reminds me of the guy I had one time who wanted to sell his house, but he had one time complained that that the septic tank didn't work right, and he wanted to sue like the septic manufacturer or something like this. But nothing ever came of that, and I remember saying to him, well, here's your dilemma. Once you wrote somebody a letter and said that there was a problem with the septic, now you kind of got to disclose that there was a problem with the septic. And he's like, well, it turned out there really wasn't a problem with the septic. And I'm like, well, then you got to disclose that you thought there was, but now there really isn't, I think. Here, though, that's a little different, which is, he actually had a problem. In other words, something happened involving the toilet or whatever that caused him to think it was a septic tank.
Right.
Here, you're just saying we've got suspicions because we see young people coming in and out frequently. Cars pulling up, whatever. It looks like drug activity based on what the textbook analysis.
Yeah.
And my neighbor has a video camera over their front door for some unknown reason too. But is it definitive or not? So probably I would want to be very careful. You probably should talk with if you have a realtor.
Yes, we do.
And let them kind of guide you on that. And if they're not sure, then maybe consult a lawyer for an actual opinion. But boy, it sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too if it's if that would even be a material disclosure, something you would have to disclose even if you did know it.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I think that's where we'd have to parse it out.
Right.
I don't know where to go.
Well, Ann, the answer is if your realtor can't satisfactorily answer your questions, then I would ask you or tell you to hire a lawyer.
Just thinking out loud, too, it's not at this point that you'd have knowledge of that.
No, we just have
the police have obviously looked into it, and they haven't established enough to go get a warrant yet, so you don't necessarily have knowledge that things are being done.
No, but the one officer did said he would write a report that he thinks he smelled it.
Gotcha.
And he said we have to keep a running report, and we've called him on several occasions, but unfortunately, the last time we called him, we think that they have a monitor, because I said right after we called him, I told my hubby, I said, let's run outside, and sure enough, there was about 7 or 8 of them that ran out of the house in minutes.
Wow.
Interesting.
So I don't know what to do.
Well, the short answer is, like I said, what I'm telling you is you're going to have to hire somebody to do a little research to figure out the answer, whether you have to make a disclosure about that or not.
Right.
I'm thinking you might have to. The flip side is, as long as they're there and you have to make a disclosure, it's not going to help sell the house.
I know.
So maybe it's time to get them run out of there.
Well, I thought about putting an ad on Craigslist saying that if you like pot and a nice place to smoke it where you won't get caught and you love the smell of cigarette, this is the house for you. I was going to write that up and take it to the township meeting.
Yeah. Well, Ann, I wish I had a better answer for you, but it seems like I'd have to do a little legal research to make the exact call on what the disclosure is. My sneaking suspicion is that if we're pretty sure there's a drug dealer there and we can smell marijuana, we might have to disclose it.
Well, we've told the realtor so much that we smell smoke, and I'm allergic to it, which right now I have to run around my house with a two-sided vent on it because I get anaphylaxis from it.
Right.
Not from cigarette smoke, because I've been in friends' houses and stuff, and that doesn't do it. It's the marijuana. As soon as I smell it, I can't breathe.
Interesting.
So they're making it impossible for me to live in my home, and we can't find anybody to help us with that.
Other option is to sue them on a nuisance suit theory.
That's a nuisance.
And get a judge to order them to stop.
I also went to my doctor. She checked me over, and she actually wrote a thing up for me saying that she said you need to leave your house. So we're in a catch-22 where we can't leave our house.
Right. But, Ann, we could sue them for nuisance and maybe get a court order. And the powers in a civil suit would be very, very broad. You'd be surprised at what we could do.
Comparable to the cases where you see someone has a fire stove that they're just burning constantly, and the smoke just keeps, wafting onto the other person's property to the point that their life's becoming intolerable.
All right, Ann, I got to go to break, but think about what you want to do, but I'd advise you get a lawyer, okay?
You that lawyer?
We got lawyers. We got piles of them.
Give me your number then.
241-6070, 241-6070.
Thank you. We might do the civil thing. Thanks.
All right, take care. When I get back from break, I'll talk with Ray and Tommy. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here, just trying to balance a radio show with everything else. 540-0580. That's my little joke during the break. I was away from the microphone, and Shane was yelling at me. Tommy, you're on with Carl and Drew Dale. What's going on?
Well, I have a problem with the in-laws who the one in-law passed away about 7-8 years ago. The other one just passed away recently. And when the first one passed away, my wife and I took care of the other in-law, he's the parent, and for 3 years. And after during the 3 years, she got Alzheimer's. And at one point when we weren't there, a niece moved in, and the first thing you know, we are no longer in the family. And they moved her, the parent, into their home, and there was no. They had the will. If there was a will, they had the will changed, and the child is no longer in the will and doesn't get anything, but the niece got everything. They sold the house, got all the money. The niece did. They got
sold all the property in the house and got all the money and so on. Is there anything you can do as a child to override, since it was an Alzheimer's, actually died from that?
Well, was the will written at a time that the person was incompetent?
Well, yes, that was after we had anything to do with it, when she had Alzheimer's before that.
Okay. So I guess what I'm not following is what you're saying is that somebody took advantage of them and had them write a will after they were incompetent?
Correct.
Okay. Well, then, yeah, absolutely, things can be done about that.
Themselves into the spot of ultimate, get everything.
Yeah, we absolutely we can challenge those things, but if you sit on your hands, I mean, how long ago did this person pass?
Right. Just last fall.
Just this past fall. Then you need to move on this pretty quickly, because a will challenge is, I think, you have a 1-year statute of limitations. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. It was the will was made out after the Alzheimer's and was taken to their house. Actually, they put the parent or their aunt into a home, and they actually died in the home.
Yeah.
And not after selling the house and everything.
Yeah, so, there sounds like there could be some estate fraud here. The problem is, obviously, if you don't move quickly, the money might not be there any longer. And second of all, sometimes proving everything gets to be difficult. But if you've got good medical evidence that the person was incompetent, that's you're 90% of the way there on a challenge.
Right. It just sounds, for a son or daughter to be replaced by a niece. You'd want to know what kind of relationship does that niece have with the individual.
It would be a stepchild, not the actual child. Well, it's a child of the one the child of the one that first passed.
But let's
the stepchild of the second one.
Let's ask another important question here. I mean, what's the value of this estate? $10, $10,000, $100,000?
No, it's probably about a minimum $300,000.
Okay, well then it's well worth fighting over.
Absolutely.
So Tommy, what we usually do in cases like this is handle them one of two ways, hourly or on a contingency fee basis.
Okay.
Hourly is no fun because you have to pay us every hour.
Sure.
Contingency is no fun because when we collect the $300,000, we're going to want a big cut of it.
Right.
And we never let you pick at the end. You have to pick at the beginning.
Right.
So anyhow, be happy to help you with it.
Okay. That sounds good.
I got Drew here on the air. He's heard all about it. So if you want to call in the office and ask for Drew, I'm sure he'll sit down with you.
Absolutely.
I can do that.
All right, Tommy.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. 241-6070, Tommy, in case you didn't get the number for the office. The talk line here is 540-0580. And we're going to keep answering your legal questions all the way through till 3 o'clock. That's right. So if you're done shoveling the snow and you want to come in and answer a legal question, get a legal question answered, I actually shoveled Romingham this morning all on my own. David.
All right.
David, how are you?
Good morning, Carl. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for taking the call. Let me stop on top of the hill, pull off the road, so that we don't have to talk about a traffic incident as well. I'm calling about the authority. I'm questioning the authority of the Capital Area Tax Bureau if I have not filed promptly my local taxes, income tax. Do they have the authority to take me to the district justice and fine me?
I don't know the answer. I assume that they may.
If I may give you a little background, when Will Gabig was still in office,
yes,
I contacted his office, and they had some information that has gotten away from me about some sort of ruling that was made. It was a court ruling, and I believe it was in Cumberland County, that was adverse to their authority and basically overruled their authority to cite people, take them to district justice, $300 fine, costs, so forth. Is that something that maybe I should contact your office about or talk to Dale later on about this? Is
yeah.
You can handle for me? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd be happy to do that.
All right, give us a call, and I'd have to think about it. I know that there's a whole system for the these tax collections. I also know a lawyer whose wife had one of these from when she was in law school somewhere where they were trying to claim she was a local that owed some money. And I remember that what was funny about it was past the statute of limitations to collect them. And the judge was like, when they pointed that out, the judge was like, that's interesting. Maybe all of them we have today are past the statute of limitations. And he ended up dismissing like a whole courtroom full of them.
Well, I'd be interested to know what that is then, too, even if it is legal, because this is old. This is maybe 3 years old.
Yeah, and I think the statute is 3 or 4 years, so it's interesting. Okay. All right, my friend.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your show. Keep it up.
All right, thanks. 540-0580, 540-0580. Carl Rominger here with Drew Deo answering your legal questions. We're going to come back and after the break here. Eric, hold on. I want to talk to you in the next hour about being pulled over by the police. So we'll talk to Eric about that. Maybe he wants to know what to do. Maybe he's got a complaint about it. And if you need to find us throughout the week, go to RomingerLaw.com. That's RomingerLaw.com. Or to download your free will kit, go to WeekendAppointment.com. Go to WeekendAppointment.com and get your free will kit. We'll be here for another hour.